Recording.
Welcome to the City of London Community Grants Program 2025 Grassroots Innovation and Capital Grants Information Session. Here's a brief overview of our agenda for the duration of the information session. First, welcome. My name is Janice Walter. I oversee the Community Grants Program here at the City of London, and I'm joined here with my colleague Ashley Patterson, who will also be speaking during the presentation. We will give you an overview of the grants program. We'll talk about the strategic plan for the City of London, which is a key part to making funding requests. We'll have the policies that you should be aware of for your grant application, as well as we'll talk about the application timeline, and we will go step by step through online applications as well. While we can't entertain questions, of course, in the recording, please note that you can contact us anytime with any inquiries. If you do have any accessibility requests or needs, we ask that you reach out to us through communitygrants@london.ca, and we will make accommodations. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Ashley Patterson.
Hello, my name is Ashley Patterson, and I work for the City of London, and I'm supporting on the policy side of the Community Grants Program. The City of London Community Grants Program is available right now for local not-for-profit organizations and community groups to apply through the annual Innovation Capital and Grassroots Program. With $250,000 in funding available this year, the program provides financial support to London-based not-for-profit organizations and community groups to implement programs over a 12-month period. These funds from the program are municipal taxpayer dollars that are directed through the City Council's multi-year budget process. These grants are provided to initiatives that advance the strategic areas of focus for the City of London strategic plan. And I'll get into that strategic plan information shortly, as it will be very relevant to your grant application. And these grants are highly competitive. The process is based on evaluation criteria that's used to score each application, a demonstrated community need with measurable outcomes, impact, and stewardship of funds, as well the available funds that are available versus the project request. So just as an example for last year's funding programs, the Innovation Capital and Grassroots process received over 85 applications with requests totaling $5.8 million. And there was only $496,000 available at the time, so you can see just how competitive the program is. The following on the screen are the overriding principles of funding, and these principles must be addressed in each application so that the review panel will be looking for these pieces. So as I mentioned, the initiative needs to clearly align with at least one of the strategic areas of focus with the city's strategic plan. Other principles include support for innovation and collaboration with community organizations, support for a project that works toward anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And as well, community support for the proposed activity and a demonstration of that community need. They'll also be looking at accountability of outcomes, having a clear and accountable, transparent process, and demonstrated financial viability and responsible financial management of the funds. So again, things to consider when you are filling out your application. On the screen, you will see a breakdown of the funding available this year. So under Innovation and Capital, these are two separate grants, but they have a shared pot of funding of $150,000 available. Grassroots is a new program that launched last year in 2024, and there is up to $100,000 available through the Grassroots Fund. This year, there's a little bit less funding available through the annual grant programs. This is because Council resolved a budget amendment to the 2025 annual budget. And as a result to these changes, there will be a $50,000 cap on all applications through the Innovation Capital and Grassroots program in order to maximize program impacts. So what that means is that no application should be requesting more than $50,000 funding in their application. Now I'm going to speak about each type of the grant program available through the annual process. The first is innovation grants. So these are provided for initiatives that engage in one or more of the following: either a new idea. So this is about something that's a proven or promising early stage innovation that needs just a bit more support to create the capacity and conditions to be sustained. The second is collaboration. So this is about engaging in dynamic community partnerships. So forming new collaborations between two or more organizations to try to make those innovative improvements to service delivery and to system collaboration. And lastly is the transformation of service delivery. So this is about improving system delivery or doing things differently. So creating new approaches to social innovation. So innovation applications are looking for you to engage in one of these or more, one or more of these. So considering the 1-year term of funding for the innovation grants, it's important that applications demonstrate a clear plan for how the proposed program will be funded after the term of the grant. So we're really looking to see how it will be sustained after the city funding. As well, organizations in receipt of City of London funding will not be eligible to receive additional city funding for the same project. And that's what's most important is it cannot be receiving double funding for the same project. And again, as I mentioned, Innovation and Capital share one pot of funding of $150,000. And these allocations between Innovation and Capital are based on the application success. So there's no division of funds between the two programs. Next are the capital grants. So these are quite different than Innovation and Grassroots. So they have a few more kind of pieces to consider. Capital grants are provided for projects involving the construction or purchase of physical assets, including but not limited to land, building, and associated renovation costs. Applications to the capital category will be considered for purchase of land and buildings. So grants are made in this category only when the purchase is required for an immediate capital project. So that means rehabilitation and replacement of existing facilities will be preferred as opposed to projects involving the construction of a brand new facility. As well, construction costs can be covered under the capital grant program. So grants in this category will be for costs associated with new facilities or renovation costs associated with increasing the program service space available to create more programming opportunities. And that part is really important. So the end goal will be about increasing the program space to benefit programming opportunities. So just keep that in mind in your application. The capital applicant must present information that demonstrates their long-term intent to remain in the building, as funding will be provided to you to make improvements to that building. Capital funding will not be granted for appliances or equipment. So funding will only be provided for construction costs for work that will be affixed to the building. So no appliances or equipment can be included in your request. Preference will also be given to organizations that demonstrate a willingness to cooperate with the community and other organizations to share that space. Applicants must also demonstrate that they have applied to relevant federal and provincial government funding opportunities related to these capital grants. One of those examples is the Enabling Accessibility Fund, which I encourage you to look up if you are not familiar with it. Organizations seeking development and capital funding to support the creation of new community-based supportive housing initiatives are not eligible. So housing initiatives are not eligible for any of the innovation capital or grassroots grants. And lastly, projects must be tendered or open to competitive bidding by two or more parties. And that is the capital grants program. Um, Next is the grassroots grant. So as I mentioned, last year was the first launch of that. And this was added to provide funding support and capacity building for newer groups or organizations that are doing amazing work in the community. So this grant is open to unincorporated grassroots groups or newly incorporated not-for-profit organizations that require support for a new initiative. So grants can be allocated towards a new initiative that includes a proven or promising early stage idea that again needs a bit more support to sustain. There is $100,000 available for this program with a $50,000 cap. So when I mentioned newly formed not-for-profit organizations, that refers to organizations that have been incorporated for no more than 3 years. So that is the definition of a newly incorporated. So nothing more than 3 years is eligible under the grassroots grant. Grassroots groups that are not incorporated refers to a group of 5 or more individuals that are joined by mutual consent for a common nonprofit purpose, and this group is expected to have functioned together for at least 1 year. These groups that are unincorporated do require a partnership with a host organization. And that host organization needs to be an incorporated not-for-profit. As well, unincorporated grassroots groups may apply for funding annually for the same initiative for up to 4 years or until the multi-year funding reopens. However, this funding is not guaranteed for organizations that have received grassroots funding the previous year. You will still need to apply, and your application will be evaluated by the community review panel. And what's different from this funding pot compared to the others is that the City of London grassroots grant may be, or sorry, the City of London may be the sole source of funding for the grassroots grant. Next, I'll briefly touch on the City of London strategic plan. The strategic plan sets the city's direction for the future. And all of these grant applications are assessed based on their alignment with the city's strategic plan. Therefore, as I said, it's really important to become familiar with the plan to align your proposal accordingly. As I said, the plan identifies City Council's vision, mission, and values, and strategic areas of focus for the city over the next 4 years. It also identifies the specific outcomes, expected results, and strategies that council and civic administration will deliver on together over the next 4 years. The plan can be found on the city's website. You can visit london.ca/strategic-plan. And it also will be available on the Community Grants online application under resources. What you'll see on the screen are the 8 strategic areas of focus. However, only 7 apply to the grant area. The last well-run city is specifically for city staff and council only. So when you are applying for funding, you will see in the application that you will select one of these 7 areas, and then you'll see a drop-down list of various outcomes and results that Janice will get into a little bit later on. But here's an example on the screen of one of the strategic areas of focus, specifically well-being and safety. And there are 2 associated outcomes with it, along with 4 expected results. So you will see in your grant application that you will align with one of these or a couple of these to show how your initiative and proposal align with the city's strategic plan. Now I'm going to get into some of the policy information that will be relevant for the Innovation Capital and Grassroots programs. This policy can be found on our website again at london.ca/community grants, and we really recommend you take a look at the policy for that relevant information. Some general program and eligibility requirements that will be important are that this initiative or your proposal must be available to a broad cross-section of the London community, unless specifically serving an equity denied group. And equity denied groups are groups that have been historically disadvantaged and underrepresented in positions of power and economic influence. So these groups face exclusion and systemic barriers. So some examples of this are women and girls, racialized persons, 2S LGBTQ plus folks, Indigenous folks, people with disabilities. And as well, related to that, a part of our policy has a requirement to provide a minimum of 25% of the total funding of these grants to be allocated to applications whose proposals support anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, and inclusions initiatives. And in the past, since that has been implemented, the grants have been allocated to more than 25% of those that support anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, inclusion. The last multi-year program, about 53% of the funding went to initiatives that support those equity denied groups. The city should not be considered as the sole source of funding for the organization. So these grants are intended to be supplementary to other sources of funding. So organizations will be expected to leverage their opportunities for funding from other funders and provide that information in their application. The exception to this, however, is the Grassroots Grant Fund. As I mentioned before, within the Grassroots program, the city is able to be the sole funder. The reasons for that are that it's meant for folks that require more capacity and sustainability support. Projects must also be delivered in the City of London or have an office located in London. So the exception to this is for organizations located on the surrounding First Nations, provided that those projects are delivered within the City of London. So because this funding comes from taxpayer dollars, it's really important that funding is only used for projects happening for Londoners. An unincorporated grassroots groups or organization may apply to the community grants program. However, as I mentioned, they do require a host organization. And that host organization needs to be, again, an incorporated not-for-profit organization. And that host will act as a sponsor to that unincorporated grassroots group. That host will be issued the funding associated with the activity. The host will assume financial and legal responsibility for the activity and adhere to the associated reporting requirements that will be outlined in the grant agreement. As I mentioned briefly, the organization also must demonstrate a strong financial responsibility and capability in carrying out the funded project, as well as a clear financial plan and efficient use of those city funds. As you will see in the budget, as you will see in the application that Janice will touch on shortly, you'll complete both a project budget and an organization budget to demonstrate both revenue and expenses. And you'll also need to upload a financial statement as a part of your application. The grant applications will be assessed by a community review panel, so they are not assessed by Janice or I. This panel was formed last year and is made up of community members who are knowledgeable in the strategic areas of focus of the city's strategic plan. So some examples of those folks are listed on your screen. The review panel is also aligned to the Government 50/30 challenge, which is a federal approach to increasing diversity to ensure gender parity and significant representation of other equity denied groups. All grant decisions are open to appeal by the applicant. That appeal process will be open for 10 business days after the community review panel makes their funding decisions. And applicants can appeal based on two decisions. The first is either new information. So this means from the time of the grant application that was initially submitted, new information has come about that could impact the grant decision, um, and for good reason was not available at the time of the initial application. And the second reasoning for an appeal could be a procedural error. So an error could have been made when assessing the grant application. So these are the two criteria, one of the two criteria that need to be met in order to appeal. You cannot appeal because you don't agree with the decision. There's very specific criteria that need to be met. So as I've said a few times, I really encourage you to visit our website at london.ca/community grants. There you will find the policy that I've touched on, administrative procedures, as well as a metrics tool that will help you in creating your metrics on the application, and as well as a list of the successful grants for past allocations. Thank you very much. I will now be passing it over to Janice to speak about the online application pieces.
Thanks, Ashley. We'll go slide by slide so I can introduce right from the start from our website page through all the applications so you have those details. So the first place you will go, which many of you have probably been there already, is our website, which will provide all the information that Ashley's already spoken about, the policies, previous applicants that have received funding. You just scroll down through the page and you will see some blue arrow tabs that you can click on, and that will open information for you. So starting on this page, the key for applying to grants are the two green buttons. So if you are a new applicant, so your organization has never applied to the City of London for funding previously, you would start here with the new application registration. If your organization has applied in the past since 2016, then you can click on the green button. It will take you to the portal that your organization would already be used to using. If you are someone that's not sure if your organization has applied before, then you can always send us a quick email and we can let you know if you've applied, if a profile has already been set up, and who the primary contact on that profile is. So the online portal is used for all of the registration. This is the first slide that you'll see is about the eligibility to enter into the portal. So those of you who organizations are already in the portal, you already qualify to make a submission. So this is mostly for new organizations. The unincorporated groups must have a host organization. So that means you have to have an organization that is a registered not-for-profit. So the eligibility criteria here is simply that you're an organization or group that's based in London or from Chippewa, the Thames First Nation, Oneida, or Munsee, that the project is going to be conducted within the City of London. And then we ask that you identify the status of the application. So you are the not-for-profit or you're hosting a organization that isn't a not-for-profit. And then you can tell us the bottom two buttons are if you're newly incorporated within the last 3 years, or you've been incorporated longer than that, and this is your first time applying. Once you make those selections, you may receive a message that says that you're ineligible. So that could be a couple of things. You're applying outside of the City of London. It could be that there is already a profile set up for your organization. So that's, again, you can contact us to help you look through to see if your organization has already been registered. Always reach out to us if you get this message and you think it's incorrect. So for new applications, this is the first screen that you will see after you get through the eligibility. So this is where you give us all your information about your organization, and you must have that not-for-profit registration number available to you because you are required to put that in there. You will need information like your board member contacts, your executive director information. So this is just a snapshot of the top of the screen. There's quite a few pieces of information that you will need to include there. As well, during the application, you will have to upload that not-for-profit certification. For those of you who have been in the portal before, you'll know what this front screen looks like. And for those of you, once you register and your application goes through and your organization is all set up, it will take you to the online portal. And this is the home screen that you will always see when you go to log in. And the portal is called Smart Simple. So it's City of London smartsimple.ca. You should probably enable those pop-ups in the browsers to allow you to have access each time you want to log into the portal. You will, once you get inside, the first thing and the continuous thing you want to do is to always click Save Draft on any parts of your application. If you forget your password, there's a simple forgot password. You don't have to wait for us. You don't have to email us. You can just click the forgot password, and an auto-generated password with a link will get you back into the system. There are 3 roles within the application process: a primary contact, and that is the person who's going to be filling out the application, who will be getting any notices that are sent out, like a reminder. We send reminders to say, application deadline is next week. So this can be the executive director of an organization, or it could be someone they've appointed as a lead for the organization to be that person to receive all the information. But whoever that primary organization contact is, they will receive all the information from Smart Simple. You will also need to register the board member, either a chairperson or a treasurer, someone who has a signing authority. The executive director is on there as well. They don't necessarily have a role for logging in unless they're also the primary contact, but their information is needed because if we sign an agreement, their names have to show up on the agreement. The system is automated. It does ask for third-party authentication as well. And we also ask that you continually update any information, especially for a change in a board member that sometimes changes annually. But we will always check in if we are writing a grant agreement to make sure that the right board member is listed in there as well. The online application portal, like I said, is the City of London smartsimple.ca. You might want to bookmark that. You will get reminders, like I said. You will get notices from the no reply at Smart Simple, so you might want to make that a safe center. When you're doing your application, you can always, and I'll show that in the coming slides, get a PDF of your application. You can always review the status of your application as well. And also, like I mentioned, there is a multi-factor authentication. So when you log in, you will also receive a notification from Smart Simple to enter a code to get yourself into the portal. So once you're in, this is what the home screen inside the portal would look like. There is an instruction button up the top there with a few simple instructions. And beside that is the community grant resources. So I've highlighted that just up in the right-hand corner there. When you click on that tab, you will see all those resources we spoke about before that are on the website. They're also located right inside of the portal in case you need to reference them. The metric tool, the strategic plan, any of those sorts of things. Also, the evaluation criteria is there. So you can always look at the evaluation criteria to see how your application will be evaluated by the community review panel. On the left-hand side, you'll see that the programs that are open and accepting applications are the Grassroots, Innovation, and Capital. So you would just click on whichever one that you're selecting as Apply Now, and it will open up the application. To the right, you'll see the square that says My Applications. And in this example here, obviously we're in draft. We started a draft application. So you can see that that application is in draft status. Once that's completed and submitted, it would move into the submitted chart. So when you go in under drafts, it wouldn't be there anymore. It would be under the submitted tab. And if it's approved, it then moves into the approved tab. And if you're funded, you will get into the reporting system, and then you would obviously be using the square below that is about reporting. So starting your applications, as I previously mentioned, and I'll probably mention a few times more, is that you need to continually save draft. This is an application where you can save draft and walk away and come back. It saves your information. However, at the very beginning, you need to save draft for that application to autofill and open up. So you'll know you've clicked Save Draft if you see the green bar on the left-hand side of the screen. So once you've done that, just another couple things to point out here are those little blue eyes. That's information that you should be reading throughout the project as little reminders about information, or it could be answering some questions you might have about the information. There's also a red asterisk on certain questions that identifies that that is a mandatory question and must be answered. At any time, you can click the application summary and it will produce a PDF of the application as you've completed it at that time. And then you can save that if you want to read through it yourself or have your colleague read through what you've written. On the right-hand side of the screen, there's just a little snapshot that has an orange header on it. It says home, and I've highlighted the letter A in the circle. So that's what you will see. It'll have your first initial there, and that's where you can go in and change any information if need be. Your organization moves, you want to change the address, or you need to change the name of the executive director. You can go in and change that information in that top right-hand corner. Okay, so now we'll talk about grassroots and innovation grants. A lot of the information is common to both of them, but obviously there are distinctive features as well for both innovation and grassroots, but a large majority of the application itself is very similar. So we're going to go through that as kind of one application altogether and then divide out the pieces separately. So the first tab that you will see when you start your application is the project tab. So give yourself a project name, preferably keep it kind of short because lengthy names become a bit of an issue when we're trying to write it on everything. So just a quick project name that identifies your project. For innovation purposes, so for the innovation applications, as Ashley had outlined, there's 3 categories. So you just need to select which category you think your project will best align to. New information, new idea, collaboration, or transformation. And there's the definition for you to choose from. And of course, click Save Draft at the bottom of the screen. The next part is about funding alignment. So this is where you need to think about that strategic plan we shared with you. So as we said, this is a strategic plan for the entire city, and this is what London residents and council have put together for the plan for the next 4 years. And any funding that is allocated from the city's budget needs to align to that strategic plan and the goals and outcomes and ideas to move those pieces forward. So you will select one area of the strategic plan that you think your project aligns to. And once you select that, it will then open a drop down for the outcomes, and you can choose 1 or 2 outcomes, and then it will drop down and open up expected results that are part of those outcomes. So just to note that based on which strategic area of focus you choose, there could be multiple outcomes or expected results for you to choose from. So these are all standardized. You can't change these. Like I said, these are from the strategic plan for the whole city. And then the last question after you've done that selection is, how does this project align and advance the chosen strategic areas of focus? So you can explain how your project will align and help reach those outcomes. The next section is about metrics. So after the expected results, we ask you to give us some metrics. So metrics seem to be a bit tricky for people. So we've tried to give you some supports. Like I said, in that first screen, there is a metrics tool, and we ask that you use that as your guiding tool. And there's hundreds of metrics in there, so you can select the ones that suit your project the best. If you think you need to create a metric of your own, then that's fine. There's some tips on how to create a metric. Metrics are very short, 5 to 7 words, and they identify the impact that your project is going to have. So for example, here, the expected result that was selected above through those drop downs, and the metric here is 25 Black older adults feel less isolated. So that talks about the number of people that are going to be impacted by the project and what it's going to do for them in their lives. So you can, the instructions are there, copy and paste the expected result, and then list up to 2 metrics for each expected result. When it comes to the point of developing a grant agreement, we will revisit these metrics to kind of tighten them up or polish them up, that sort of thing. So please give this your best effort, but if you do get funded, we will revisit those to make sure they're accurate. The other section that you will need to fill out is the expected participation and frequency. So typically, for many applications, the project is a bit of an overarching program that's being delivered, and we would like to know some of the details of that program that's being delivered. So if you were running a project, say, for example, that's to support Black seniors, it's a Black Seniors Day program, for example, then under expected participation, we would ask what programs you were running. So you might be running a seniors drop-in, and you expect for the year to have 60 older adults attend. You might run some seniors workshops, and you are hoping that 100 older adults will attend. So this is where you give us kind of a breakdown of all the elements of the project that you're applying for. And then again, same kind of program name. We're just asking how often are you providing that program through the course of the 12 months. So here's kind of just a flow of what it would look like with that area of focus all the way down to metrics, right? So you choose the area of focus, reconciliation, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. It opens some outcomes. They've selected the City of London as a leader in becoming an equitable and inclusive community. They then chose services are informed and delivered by the communities we serve. And then the metrics that were created are 50 Indigenous people have a voice in creating cultural safety training, and 500 service providers have increased knowledge to better serve Indigenous people. So you can see by selecting that area of focus right at the top, which is kind of big and overarching, when you break that down by providing that project, the impact are to the Indigenous people that are participating as a voice in creating cultural safety training, as well as the impact is going into those 500 service providers who have increased knowledge now. The next questions as we go through that project, so this is still all about the project, we ask about the evidence of gap and need. How do you think this initiative fills or will fill a community need in a way that others currently do not? Because this is innovation, or for grassroots, very similar. Why are you the right organization to do this work? So kind of looking at ensuring that it's not a duplication of service, that there's a specific need that you're addressing in the community. We have a section about anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, inclusion. So we ask that you select from those boxes there a number of different populations. You may be serving one population, which is fine. You may be serving 2 or 3 population, and that is fine. It's just about who you're serving with that project funding. And then there's a couple questions down the bottom there related to the equity denied groups. Are the equity denied groups identified, involved, and providing input into the project? If so, how? And if not, how will they be engaged? How does the project support anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, inclusion? And is the project being delivered by staff or volunteers? For some organizations, you're completely volunteer operated, representing the identified equity denied populations. The next button that you'll open up is the total project participation demographic. So this is a bit of a goal on how many people you think you're going to serve with 12 months of funding. So you'll see that each item says number of unique. So whether it's unique children, youth, adults, older adults, unique means how many individuals you expect to serve over the course of the year, whether that person comes to the project or programs once in the whole year, or they come 10 times or 20 times. If they come to your project 20 times in a year, they're one unique individual. The 20 times is visits, and we're not asking for visits, it's just unique individuals. The columns will auto-calculate, except for the number of families. So we just ask you to enter that separately, because obviously the family would consist of those unique individuals like children and adults. The next part is about your project budget. So before we open the project button tab, the green button there, this is also for your view in the application. We've noted what we mean by these certain budget lines. So what it means when we say staff wages or professional fees, administrative costs, occupancy costs, program supplies, community meetings and events, and then it will total the program costs for you as well. So if you need to reference, where should I put my request? Hopefully this is helpful. And if there's something there that you're requesting and it doesn't belong, by all means, again, you can always ask us. So here is the budget that will open when you click the green button. A reminder, like I said at the top, the little blue eye icon is a reminder, and this reminder is the maximum request for funding is $50,000. So you'll see for each of those budget lines, we have 2 columns. One is the actual project costs, and one is how much you're requesting the city to support in funding. So you can see by example here, staff wages, we're saying, oh yes, it's going to cost us $9,000 in staff wages, but we're only asking the city for $8,000 towards that. So you can see at the bottom there, it auto calculates. The total project here is costing $15,000. We're asking the city to support it with $11,500. This project description is the same kind of format as the budget, but we would like you to give us some details about what that money is being used for. So for staff wages, we'd like to know, is that a part-time person, 2 part-time people, 1 full-time staff? What is the administration cost going to pay for? What do you need for occupancy costs? And you can see some examples there. Occupancy costs, we need to rent the gym monthly. So we would need funding to help support the payment for the rental. Or program supplies. What kind of supplies do you need for your program? So it just helps us define what the actual funds are going towards. And the question at the bottom there is, how will this project continue beyond the 12 months of funding? And that's both for innovation and grassroots. So that was all the project. That was all about the project. The next tab at the top of that screen will be the organization description. So this is all about the organization. So if you're a registered not-for-profit, you're obviously filling this in as yourself as the not-for-profit. If you're a grassroots group who is being hosted, then you will see a bit of defining information as we go into the next slides. I will note and suggest that if you are a grassroots or grassroots group that's working with a not-for-profit organization to host your application, you will want to sit down together to do this information together. And the reason for that is obviously that host organization is helping to support you, and there's information that they will need to provide as well. So we ask if you're a registered not-for-profit, your organization name, a brief description of your organization, and if you've received City of London funding in the past. If you click yes, I'm not going to open it up here, but it will open a chart that you can fill in to tell us your previous funding that you've received from the City of London. How many staff or volunteers does your organization or hosted group have? So you can fill in full-time, part-time, or volunteers. Okay, so for innovation only, this is about the organization capacity and sustainability. So it's about the organization budget. The organization section is completed by the not-for-profit or host, so the host group. So you can be hosted for innovation as well as grassroots. So if you're a grassroots group, you typically would apply for grassroots, but some have applied for innovation. So this is all about the organization. But if you're being hosted, it's about your host, yourself as the host. And this is all about your revenue. So for grassroots only, the organization section is to be completed by the grassroots group, not the host organization. And that's why I suggest that you sit down and do this together. These questions are about the grassroots group. So we want to know your capacity to deliver and your ability to sustain things in the future. So once you click that yellow button, it opens up the revenue charts. So you will be filling in. This is just like the itemized list because there's a long list of them, and there will be a column beside them. But these are how you're making your revenue. So how you're receiving other funds coming into your organization or group. So we've given you a large selection there. We've also got some space for others. So you can click if you're receiving United Way funding or if you're doing some fundraising. And then the next set of questions will be about around your expenses. So the organization of the group's expense for operating. So how much do you spend on staff wages currently, or your occupancy costs, that sort of thing. And then at the bottom of all of that will be the operating budget. So the total organization revenue will auto total. The next line, total organization expense operating budget. And I've highlighted that in yellow. The organization, you need to enter this manually. Although you've told us what your expenses are, for some organizations, their operating budget is higher because they have a foundation involved. And then the total City of London project funding request. So this is another time for you to do a self-check on the fact that you are not asking for more than $50,000 because you need to enter that. You need to go back to your project budget, look and see how much you're asking for. Remember, in that example, we were asking for $11,500. That's the amount that you would enter here as your request. And then it auto calculates a percentage for us. So for innovation, these slides are very similar, but for innovation, these are the supporting documents that need to be uploaded. So you will upload your not-for-profit certificate, one of the 3 examples of financial statements. So if you're an organization, a not-for-profit that's been around, you will likely have audited financial statements. You may have them in an unaudited status by your accountant at this point, and that's fine. If you're a small organization, fairly new, you may not have audited or unaudited financial statements, which is fine. You can send us internally prepared financial records, but we have to have some kind of financial statements from the group applying. We ask for a list of your current board of directors, so a list of their names and the contact information. We ask for minutes of the most general meeting. So any not-for-profit organizations are required to hold an annual general meeting every 12 months. So we would ask for the records of that meeting. Is the organization currently insured? We have a yes/no option here. Yes, please attach your certificate. You only need to attach the front page that gives us the insurance company and the dates for your insurance. We don't need the 65-page document attached. If you click no, you don't have insurance, that's okay. However, at the time of writing the grant agreement, you will have to purchase insurance, and that cost can be part of your budget request if you need it to be, which is fine. We just can't fund you until you have insurance. And there's the opportunity to upload your insurance coverage page. And then if you have a strategic plan for your organization, you wish to upload it, you can. It's not a mandatory field. And then at the bottom there, we have a new feature, which is a video. Again, not required, but if you would like to upload a small 3-4 minute video just about maybe the project or about your organization or your group, that's fine. It does not replace the application. There's no points in the scoring or the evaluation for groups that do submit a video, so there's no advantage. It just sometimes is something people wish to do to make sure that they've explained themselves or their project sufficiently in the application. So for grassroots groups, the documents required are from the newly formed not-for-profit. So if you're a not-for-profit within the last 3 years and you're applying for grassroots, which is appropriate, then you would upload all your information. If you're not incorporated and you have a host, we need their information because they're the ones with the not-for-profit certificate. They're the ones with financial statements. They're the ones with the board members, with the minutes of the general meeting, with the insurance. And so just to ensure that if you're being hosted, this is where the host organization needs to upload their information. And just a reminder that all information has to be in a PDF form in order for you to be able to attach it. Capital grants. So capital grants are a bit different because obviously the request is more about construction, renovations, a building, land, that sort of thing. So the first part of a capital application, again, is about the project, but clearly it's a bit of a different ask. Project name, a brief description. All those other pieces are very similar: funding alignment, evidence of gap and need, community impact, anti-racism, anti-oppression. The project budget will look different. We'll open that up in future slides. Evidence of gap and need, very similar. And the impact question here is a little bit different because it's how will this project increase access to programs, services, and or supports with the request that you're making. So the funding alignment, again, will be the same as innovation and capital. You select one, it opens the various drop downs. And then even though it's a capital project, how will this advance the chosen strategic area of focus and related outcomes? These are all very much the same questions as an innovation and capital. Again, by doing the renovation or by purchasing a building, that sort of thing, we would like to know which equity denied groups will be impacted with this capital application, just like we do for innovation and grassroots. So the capital project budgets, as I mentioned, look a little bit different. There will be the project budget, the expenses, your funding budget, and then a project schedule. So the project budget opens up to this project schedule. So we basically are asking what year things will take place in. If it is about design, property acquisition, if you're purchasing property, or construction, what is the year that this is going to happen in? That's a little bit key in this situation because innovation, capital, and grassroots run on 12 months. So by the time the allocations are made, it's going to be summer. So summer 2024 until summer of 2025 to summer of 2026 is when these projects will operate for. So we kind of need a bit of a timeline as well. And then we also ask what your cash flow is. So for this year, so 2025, what's your cash flow to your organization? And you can open another tab underneath with the little plus sign, and you can put 2026 on what your cash flow is for that year as well. So this is where you will talk about your project budget and expenses. So if it's a land acquisition, you need to fill in that section there. And the little blue I information is a reminder. If you could please just enter NA for each of the descriptions that you're not submitting for. We ask that you do that because if you don't, at the end, you'll get an error message say that it's something that has not been filled out sufficiently. So if it doesn't apply to you, just put NA into the boxes, please. Same for the building purchase or a new build, anything to do with that. Construction and renovations are probably the most common requests that we get. And we ask that for the project, you identify a description of what you're looking to be funded. So you may be doing a renovation to maybe create a community kitchen in your facility. So with that project, what are the items that you're needing to receive funding for? So if it's having new flooring put in, you have to have the old, 50-year-old flooring torn up and have new flooring put in. Then under description, we'll put flooring. You could put total budget. Oh, it's going to cost us, $30,000, and our request to the city would be $10,000. So each of those items, you can add more lines by clicking that little plus sign there. So we kind of want to know what the project costs and what you're requesting from us. So there is a section there also separate that's around engineering for some of those bigger projects that we have just divided that out a little bit for people. And then the project expenses will be totaled just like you saw in the others. It will auto total what the total project costs are and what you're requesting from the city. And just as a reminder too, for capital, as we mentioned earlier in the slideshow, is that if you're looking at construction, we do not fund equipment or appliances. So if you're doing a community kitchen, we would not fund the refrigerator. We would not fund a new stove, but we would fund the electrical to put in fridges and stoves, that sort of thing. Okay. Capital project budget, and this is similar to the other budgets around who your funders are and where your revenue is coming from. So again, we have a whole list of, you can fill in who the funders are, and we've got kind of the current year. So for 2025, what's your funding? And for 2026, what is your funding? So you can see we filled in a couple of examples here so that you can see that, we're saying, donations are $6,000 this this year, but next year we think they might be $5,000. So it just gives us a really good estimate on what your total revenue sources are for this year and next year, because this crosses over a 12-month period. So site plans, obviously that's something a little different for capital requests. We need to know who will own the land, building, and capital renovations that are the subject of the request. Again, do you already own the property or are you leasing a property? So if the applicant is not the owner of the site, you have to have the owner's permission to make the request. So we want to ensure that if you are leasing, that the lease allows you to do the renovations and you have the owner's permission to make those changes to the facility. If the site is leased, you need to state the terms and duration of the lease. For example, how long do you have occupancy, expected length of time remaining in the facility, and you will, under supporting documents, have to attach that lease for us. We want to ensure that if we're investing funding into a renovation, that you're not leaving that lease in 2 years' time. Is the project tendered or open for competitive bids by 2 or more parties? To be eligible, you would need to at least tender or open competitive bids for at least two or more parties to apply. If the project has accessibility features, have you applied to relevant funding sources such as the Enabling Accessibility Fund? So that if it is about accessibility, you might want to look that fund up to look at their deadlines as well. You may have applied and been declined because they ran out of money or the application wasn't suitable, whatever, but we do want to ensure that people are applying to other sources of funding for accessibility requests. Organization description. So this is the same as Innovation and Capital. This is all about the organization. The capital grant is the only grant that you cannot have a host organization for. So if you're applying for capital, you have to be a registered not-for-profit, and it's about your building or the building that you lease. Very similar, as I said, to the other slides about the organization. This is all of the funding that you receive and revenue sources. And again, it will auto-calculate, but at the end there, under the totals, you will have to manually enter information there as well. There is also the anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, inclusion question. Demonstrate how the steps your organization is taking to address anti-racism, anti-oppression, diversity, equity, inclusion. So under the supporting documents for capital, again, they need to be in PDF form. Some of them are the same as the others: not-for-profit certificate, financial audited statement, current list of your board of directors, your most recent general meeting minutes, and then we will need that written permission from the owner of the site, or our organization does not have this document at this time. If you don't have that document when we're reviewing and we know that it's a lease, that will be something that the review panel will ask for before they make a decision. We put the option, our organization does not have this document at this time, simply because sometimes people are filling out the application a couple days before the deadline and they haven't been able to get that written permission yet, but we will require that as soon as possible. And similar for the copy of the lease. Again, same as the other applications, is the organization currently insured? Yes, no. And if not, then the insurance will have to be in place before we can fund. Again, organizational strategic plan is optional, and the video is also optional. So for all applications, the next tab that you will see after supporting documents is a declaration. So as the primary contact filling out this application, you are submitting this application on behalf of the organization, your executive director, and the board of directors. So everybody who needs to know that you're applying knows, and you are declaring that all those parties are aware that you're submitting this application. And you can click that button and then click submit. And if everything is good, it will say that your application has been successfully submitted. Again, at any time, you can click that application summary and create a PDF of the application for yourself. You may click submit, and then the next slide is what you may see. You may get error messages. So if there's information missing, it will inform you that there's incomplete sections of the application. So one example up the top here with the alert message, provide a brief description of project one cannot be empty. So it tells you what it is. You can click on the yellow OK button, and it will take you back to that location to fill out that question. Sometimes you will have multiple errors. So what you will see is that red kind of list below that your submissions fail because there's a number of different things. So these are just a whole bunch of places where information has not been selected properly, and you will have to go back to each one. And then when you click submit, hopefully you've taken care of them all, and then you'll have a successful application being submitted. If you have any challenges and you're not sure where the error is or what the issue is, you can always reach out and contact us. But as I'll mention in this next slide, you can't leave that to the last minute, because if we need to work with you to help provide some direction, we can't do that at the 11th hour at a deadline. So here's a reminder. The application deadline is Monday, March 17th at 12 p.m., which is 12 noon. So try submitting your application early to allow you that time to fix any errors, or call us if you need some help. That is a Monday deadline. We are not available on the weekend. So I would suggest the week prior, you get your application done and work on submitting it, by the Wednesday or Thursday to allow to have everything completed. We actually have already had one organization that's already finished their application and submitted, which is great. The earlier, the better. Please don't leave your application to the last minute. The deadline is an automated deadline, so at 12 noon, that application will shut down even if you're in there working on it at the time. And there are no exceptions. So the information session, we had an information session on February 13th that was well attended. So this is now the recording that we can post on the website for everyone to view at any time. You can revisit it as you're filling out your application, and hopefully we've answered all your questions in the video. We do have some application consultant meetings, so you can book a 30-minute consultation with myself and Ashley to talk about your application. On the website, there is the link to Eventbrite, and you can select any of those dates and times. They're half-hour blocks, and all the meetings are at the Carling Heights Optimist Center, and you can book that time with us and come prepared with your questions or your application, and we can help with some tips or advice and recommendations. We're always available for phone and email support. If you have some questions as you're working through your application, you want to send us an email with a couple of questions, that's fine. We'll happily return those emails as quickly as possible to you. So we're always here to help support. Again, any accessibility needs for an application, please let us know and we can make those arrangements. Here is just a timeline overview for you. So obviously the application deadline is March 17th. We then have our community review panel that reviews and evaluates and makes all the funding decisions. That'll happen during the course of April. Then we will inform all of you that have applied. We will inform you of the decisions. If you've been declined or if your application has been approved, you will receive a tentative amount. So we would could be saying, yes, we would like to support your application with $6,000. However, the amount is tentative because we still have to do that appeal process. So we have a 10-day, which is 2 weeks of an appeal process where people can apply for an appeal based on that very specific criteria, new information that you did not have at the time of the application, or some kind of procedural error. Once that appeal process is completed, we then will reconfirm with the approved applicants to verify their amounts. If there was a successful appeal, sometimes that amount changes. So that's why we have made that a tentative amount at first. We confirm all the amounts. We write a report. Council endorses a decision. So council does not make any of the decisions on the funding, who gets funded or how much. That's the community review panel that does that. Once the report is approved by council, we can then create your grant agreements. We generate those for signatures, and then we start funding you. So that should all happen over the course of the summer. So usually by July, I work with people to tidy up their budgets and their metrics and create the grant agreements for people to sign. Here's just a bit of an overview of previously funded projects. You can find this on our website as well. As I said, just scroll down and you can see the list. There's a couple of blue arrows that you can click on. It can open them all up. So you can see that the funding for these varied anywhere from $5,000 to one group received $30,000. But this was last year, so we didn't have that $50,000 cap either. But this is kind of typical of the grassroots projects that were funded in these amounts. Innovation and capital, same thing. We didn't have the $50,000 cap previously. So historically, yes, we have funded some organizations over that $50,000, for example. And like we said, innovation and capital are one pot of money, and there's no defining factor that says we have to spend half of it on innovation and half of it on capital. It's just based on the competitiveness of the application. So there have been years where we've only funded one capital project and funded, 7 or 8 innovation projects. And sometimes it's even. We've funded, 4 innovation and 4 capital. So it just all depends on the applications themselves. So thank you for listening. We hope this has been very helpful and answers all your questions. If you have any requests, any questions, need any support, you can always send us an email through our community grants portal, the website. You can email us directly. There's my direct email address. If you have any technical requests, you're having trouble with your password or logging in, that sort of thing, you can reach out to our administrative assistant, Jacqueline. You can email her directly or through that communitygrants@london.ca, which is the common email address that's on our website, or you can give us a call, either way. So we can't entertain any questions here, but hopefully we've answered everything for you, and we hope it's been informative. Again, feel free to reach out. We're here to support your application. Thank you. Good luck with your applications and have a great day.